I think that in this market especially, it's good to be pretty nichey. If you're just a generalist, it's harder to decide where you're going to focus your energies. I'm here with Nathaniel Arnold. What he's been doing for years and years, his bread and butter is working probate leads and getting listings from probate leads. He's actually written an ebook that we'll share with you that gives you like really everything you need to know. He's here today just to talk about what it is he does, how he's working with these leads.
Sylvia Dana here.
I like this idea of sharing with you how to focus on a niche and really make it profitable for yourself. And so I'm really impressed with what Nate's done and he's going to be sharing with you. So I really appreciate you doing this with us. I know we've talked about it for a little bit and you just have so much knowledge to share. I'm just going to ask you some questions and we'll share this ebook, you guys, too. It's really good. 49 pages of his training on doing this. So you won't be stuck afterwards. So to get us started, Nate, tell us a little bit about your background with working in real estate and how did you get involved with probate leads?
Okay, great. I've been in real estate for 38 years, so that's a long story. I have to abbreviate it quite a bit. I started off in real estate really after I got out of college, a few years out of college, a college friend of mine, working with several clients that were investors, and we began to work together. I was licensed as an agent. I got my real estate license. And then I became an appraiser because of the difficulty in getting appraisals back quickly. This was back in 88. Then I began to devote my time primarily to general brokerage. I had a general brokerage and I had a good number of agents working for me. And I also had appraisers working for me as well. Then I got involved in almost every aspect of it. I had a mortgage company, title company, the appraisal firm, as I mentioned before. And I worked for banks as an asset manager. I have a lot of experience in real estate and different aspects of it. When I became acquainted with probate was really in Great Recession, 2007 or so. But the market in our area, Maryland, DC, the market just really dried up. There was not a lot happening. I mean, you couldn't sign the deal really, literally. And so I began to, with an associate of mine, help me develop the process. And we began to go after just pretty much probate leads. Now, the thing about probate is that, like most real estate, is very cyclical. However, I found that the probate market was not cyclical. And that's pretty much because people die year round. And so we're able to develop a system where we go to the courthouse, we get the information. We had to, of course, learn about the probate process. And then we would get on the phone, which was me. I would get on the phone. I would do mail outs. I would do different things. And I would essentially convince the people that they really needed to work with an expert in probate, which at the time I was not when I was trying to become one. In my very first year, I closed 13 probate cases. The great thing about that is that most of them were double-sided. I was actually the listing broker and the selling broker. Most of the time in probate cases, you have property is in a state of disrepair because typically the owners are elderly and, at a certain age, you really don't put much in and invest much of your time and effort and money to the property. And a lot of them were sickly or what have you. So, but the thing was, Sylvia, that I really got me even more interested in the business was that very first year, I closed 13 deals. As I evaluated what I hadn't done, I missed out on 13 properties that people wanted to sell that I did not actually, because I didn't have a system in place.
Interesting. So you said your first year, you got 13 deals and you were able to work both sides. You got both sides of the deal, most of those cases. But then you realized there were 13 other deals you missed?
Yes.
Because you didn't have a system in place. Interesting. Right. Continue.
Yeah. So I could have probably done double when I had a working system. I closed 77 deals. That was good. That was probably 5-6 years ago. And the market was really robust and that kind of thing. But I worked myself to there. So probate has been, that's all I focus on now. That's all I do. I don't think
Yeah.
about anything else. That's it for me.
What makes working this particular niche, worth it to you to focus on?
Okay, that's a good question. One, you don't have a lot of competition as far as realtors go. Most real estate agents are essentially afraid of probate. They don't know what it is. They've heard it takes a lot of time and energy, and they are correct. And they don't think that it's really worth the time and energy. I mean, and everybody has their own opinion. I have learned, however, that is very much worth the time and effort. It does take a good amount of gaining knowledge and actually being able to deal with the people that you're dealing with. Because it is a very emotionally charged time for most people, they are thrust in the position of being a personal representative, and they've never done that before. They don't know how much time it's going to take. They don't know how to deal with their relatives and the creditors and the beneficiaries and the investors, by the way, because you have a ton of investors actually going after property first time on the market. So you're dealing with a lot of moving pieces, and it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of skill, and it does take some know-how. You really have to know how to address uh, questions that people have, and really have to gain their confidence.
Right.
Really have to know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So on that note, in your ebook, which we'll share at the end, you say you don't have to know everything. And when you started, you didn't know everything. But how did you start learning? And when somebody just starts, let's say I'm like, oh, I want to try this. I want to work on this year. Will I benefit from like finding some attorneys to partner with to learn from? Or how will I really learn this? And so I do know what I'm talking about.
Well, that's another good question. You would be surprised. A lot of attorneys don't really understand probate either. Okay. A lot of attorneys actually are learning the business. I've actually had to help attorneys. So your first course of action is really to understand what the probate process is in your jurisdiction. Now, fortunately, in DC and Maryland, they have a book. There are a couple of books about probate process. Okay. So what I did, I printed those books out and I studied them. Okay. You have to read. You have to take the time to actually understand what the probate process is in your area. One of the things that I learned from that was that there are basically two types of probate. There's in our area. There's the supervised probate and unsupervised. Supervised probate is when the court is actually looking over the PR's shoulder. All right. That's about 20% of the cases. Majority of the cases, about 80%, are unsupervised. Okay. Which means that you can deal directly with the person representative and they can make a decision. All right. That's the great thing about unsupervised cases. All right. So I began to concentrate on cases that were unsupervised. But don't get me wrong now, I did cases that were supervised too. Both of them, you can get the list, but one is typically easier than the unsupervised cases is typically easier to do.
Right. Because you're not dealing with like a middleman, right?
Well, the supervised case, you're dealing with the court.
Step one, learn the process. So if you're in Michigan and you're in Kent County, for example, where I am, I would need to take the time to learn about how the probate process is handled in Michigan and specifically my county.
Exactly.
Correct. Okay, let's talk more about these types of leads. Somebody's passed away. Now they have this estate to deal with, this property to deal with. There's just a lot to figure out. I'm on high alert about this myself because I actually got a lead, a Zillow lead, somebody looking to purchase a house and their mom died and the guy's the executor. And I really don't know what questions to ask him. He's got a brother that's also on the estate. I don't know what questions to ask him about how to help him really, or what he needs or where he is at in the process because I don't understand it. So when it comes to approaching these people and managing multiple family members, like what do you typically do?
Okay, well, the first thing is you typically are going to deal with the person that can make the decisions. That's going to be in your case, executive. We call them personal representatives in this area. So you're not really dealing with one person, but you're helping them to deal with the other people. Okay, so that's really kind of critical. you are the point of contact for the PR, and you're giving the PR assistance. So the first thing as a professional that I do is I evaluate the situation. Okay, I have to know what the situation is, what I'm dealing with. Now in probate, there are three categories of people you're dealing with. You're dealing with the heirs, the beneficiaries, and the creditors. Okay, creditors are typically your bank. The beneficiaries are the people that are probably more than likely designated by, say, if there's a will. And then the heirs are the people that by law have a right to the property or access to the property. So you're dealing with those categories of people. So you first have to find out what the situation with the property is. Okay. What is the condition of the property? Does it have a mortgage on it? Does it have a reverse mortgage on it? How many heirs? How many beneficiaries? You're gathering information. So what I like to do is I actually like to talk to the personal representative and then go to the property to evaluate the property, to meet them at the property, because a lot of personal representatives are familiar with things like Zillow and Redfin, okay? So they'll go to those sites and they will get an idea based on what they've seen on Redfin or Zillow and say, oh, this property is worth $600,000. No, it's not, because it needs work. And so I explained to them that Zillow and Redfin are marketing portals. And I tell them that because they are designed to have a person come to this site and say, oh, this is a great house. I want one just like this, okay? So they are not designed to tell people the truth about the market valuation of property. Now, I can say that and I can do that because I have 22 and a half years as a licensed certified appraiser, okay? So I can essentially go and evaluate a property. I also have experience doing general contract work. I've done renovation. So I can go to the property and get a good sense of what the real market value is. And every agent doesn't have that capability, okay? And I understand that. But I mean, these are skills that you still can kind of learn. You can at least give them an understanding of what it entails to sell this property. Because if any of us can go on MLS and see what the properties in the neighborhood have gone for and how they look, okay? You can pull up the pictures and see, oh, this house has been renovated. Your house has not been renovated. Does that make sense?
Right.
So you're just using common sense to talk to the personal representatives. And when you talk to them, you're not talking down to anybody. But when you can explain to them the difference between the assessed value and the market value or the appraised value, that goes a long way with your credibility.
And really, just as any listing agent, you're going to have to face these types of things. So, this is here, you really have to own your skill. So here's my next question on dealing with these types of contacts. Like you said, they're being approached a lot by a lot of different people, maybe different attorneys, maybe investors. And they're confused, like, who do they work with? How do they know? Are you all the same thing? Are you different? Because they don't understand how real estate or how realtors work. So how do you come in like as an authority and explain who you are in this process and how you found them and how you want to help them and let them know that you can be that main contact? Like, how do you establish yourself that way to them?
Well, first off, my website is focused on that, but I try to keep everything very simple for my client. I want them to know that probate is a very time-consuming, energy and emotional process, and that it's my job to do three things: to make that process simpler, alleviate any headaches for them, and to make sure that there's no legal blowback. Three things that I just concentrate on: make it simple, leave the headache, and no legal blowback. And all of those things are important because they've never done this before. They want you to help them eliminate the headache. They want to make sure that when the estate is settled, there's no legal ramifications that will hinder them, that you kind of dealt with that for them. And most of this is not really anything that's out of what you would do as an agent, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so essentially, I tell them those three things, and then I tell them, look, I can assist you in every step of the way in this process. If you want to have the property cleaned out, I have vendors for that. Now, I have a list of vendors that deal with everything from appraisers to move out specialists to you name it. I have a list of those people. And when they work with me, now they do not get that list until they sign the
Right.
listing
Okay.
agreement.
Yeah. You're not just freely giving this list, like
Right, right,
sign a
right,
listing agreement with you.
right.
And this is really good. And, like in Michigan or in my MLS area in West Michigan specifically, we have like a delay addendum. So, like, we get a listing agreement today, we can write up a delay addendum that this isn't going to go on the MLS until such and such a date in the future. And it can always be changed. But as long as we have that, we don't have to put it on the MLS within a certain time once we get that listing agreement if we have a delay addendum. Because I know every MLS is different, but this process can take a long time, right? It could take several months.
Yes and no. We have a coming soon status. But now, and see, this is where most agents get into trouble with probate. Probate does not have to take a long time. It can take a long time, but it does not have to. In our area, there are what's called letters of administration. So you go to the courthouse, you fill out the paperwork, and this is again unsupervised. Fill out the paperwork, and once you submit that paperwork, they give you what's called letters of administration. Now, you are the person that has those letters of administration is a recognized person that deals with that estate. They now can go out and get a tax ID number because they have to get a bank account and they get a tax ID number, of course, from the federal government. And they also are now putting what's called a notice in the paper. Okay. That notice in our jurisdiction has to be in 3 times. It takes about 28 days. Once that's approved and once they get the letter of administration, I'm not an attorney. Let me say that off the bat. But because I've done it so long, I'm familiar with the process. Now, in most jurisdictions, though, you have a case flow. For example, I have a situation right now where the young lady mother passed, and she's the only child. Will be the personal representative, and she wants to sell the house but she can't deal with it right now. Okay, so although everything is done and in place, she does not have the emotional bandwidth to deal with selling her mother's house. So she may sell it 6 months down the road, but this is the thing: she's now in kvCORE, so we can give her the drip campaign or what have you. See what I'm saying? You don't have to talk to her on a regular basis, but she knows that she has our help. And I've got another case where I've been dealing with a similar case in D.C. where the mother's been dead about 3 years now, but the daughter lives out of state. The house is here in D.C., but I call her on a regular basis. I put her on a drip campaign and, just follow up. So hopefully when she is ready to sell, okay, that's the case. But then there are other cases where people can sell immediately. Once they put that information or once they get the letter of administration, they can actually sell that house. When they do sell it, they have to put all the proceeds in the bank account until the final account. So the property can be sold, so it's just not a wasting asset. The thing is to have enough cases so that you have a pipeline, and that's the critical thing.
You have this vendor list, and there's a lot of things that could possibly be done, like a move out clean or etc. And maybe an appraisal. So do you actually provide any of these service as part of your listing fee, or say I'll do it and then you can pay me at close? Or how do you, when this work gets done, who pays for that and when?
Good question. No, I do not do. I have done some of that, but most of the time I contract out. As an agent, you don't want to put yourself into legal liability. So I normally give them 3 vendors. Okay. Like if they need an appraisal, then I'll give them 3 appraisers to pick from. If they need the property cleaned out, I'll give them 3 vendors, like Habitat for Humanity, Red Cross, and Goodwill. You know what I'm saying?
So if they don't have any money, like you'll actually help them connect with resources in the area that might come and take all the stuff, for example, like Salvation Army or something like that. Because what if they don't have any money to do some of this work?
That's a good question. What I do is some of the vendors, I've already got a prearranged agreement with them. Okay. Well, you take your money at closing. I get the listing, you get the clean out, we both get paid at closing.
Tell me, how do you go about getting these leads? And then what does the typical process look like?
Okay, the typical process is you have to go to the jurisdiction. You go to the courthouse or you go to the periodical, because remember, it's going to be published in a periodical. And so you can look at the periodical and get the information directly from that. You will have the personal representative's name, person who died, if they have an attorney, sometimes they'll have the property. So you can get a lot of information. If you can't get it from there, in our area, it's all online as well. Okay. Now, before COVID-19, we used to simply go to the courthouse. We would get a chair and take it 2 hours every week, go to the courthouse, and you get everything, including the phone number. But now, post-COVID, they no longer give you the phone numbers, okay? So you got another step now. You got to go to Super Pages or some other, and then track them down like that. You also may have to go into your MLS and find the property address of the receipt. So
Right.
there's a bit more work now you have to do. I have closed probate cases in 2 weeks. In other words, they got the papers and we settled 2 weeks later, literally, because they were ready. And then I've been able to deal with people that I've had in my database for 3 years who called me on the phone and said, look, you have contacted me religiously. I could not go with anybody but you. The great thing about it is if you have a system that will do that, so they think I'm doing all this work, I'm really not.
Right.
Because I've got all of these things in place, and I'm concentrating on the ones that are, I think, are going to be the most probable to be sold quickly. The other thing about probate, and I'll share this with you, is that 80% of probate cases, they're going to sell the property, okay? And these are numbers that I have worked out over the years. So if you've got 100% of cases, 80% of the time they're going to sell the property. The issue is when they're going to sell it, okay? Of that 80%, 23%, okay, and this is for you who want to be investors in this, 23% will sell the property directly to you. So if you are in the market to become an investor, probate is I have, and I've done it all, trust me, is from tax liens and you name it, is the best thing to do. Okay. So 80% sell, 23% will sell to you.
I've just now put Nate's ebook in the chat. This ebook, you guys, it's really cool. Like he just breaks down like the steps, and obviously his area is specific. And when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, you've got different jurisdictions to deal with that do things different ways, but this is going to help you. And then he's got like a daily action plan, starting from researching at the courthouse to the different notices, the different legal publications in his area that he goes to look for these things. And then it goes into a form that you can use for an on the go cold call taken tracker, information you're going to need to gather. He's got like a daily action plan or daily activity plan for how to follow up with these leads. And he's got a sample activity plan, and then going through the whole deal from writing the offer and closing the deal in this ebook. I mean, I just want to talk about, kvCORE. So you're an independent broker, and you
Right.
decided to, start using kvCORE as your system. So tell me a little bit about that. What were you doing before you started using kvCORE, and then how are you using kvCORE to help you now?
I was actually, I was using a software called Top Producer. I had used it for, man, I guess, maybe 12 years. I have over 25,000 contacts in it. And so and they began to have problems. This is what really initiated the whole search for me. They began to have problems. You couldn't get online. The follow-ups were just terrible. But anyway, I said, this is not working. So I began to search around for a different software. I did a Google search, and then I saw something in, I think, the Realtor magazine, and ended up talking to several people, including Sylvia. I liked her program and decided to go with them. Now, I will be honest though, kvCORE is above a lot of what I'm not the best person in what's the techno. I'm kind of older, so I'm not the most techno savvy person. But what I have done though has been tremendous for me. And I have recently signed on to, I had 2 virtual assistants for Sylvia's program as well. because the courthouse part of it is labor intensive. Okay, if you can't go to you don't have to go to the courthouse anymore, but you've got to get the information from a source, and that's kind of labor intensive. You got to have somebody doing that. You got to have the follow up. You got to have the initial call. You got to have the follow up, the ability to actually touch these people and reach these people in multiple formats: phone, text, email, whatever. And that's where the kvCORE comes in.
You mentioned the VA program. So yeah, he's just talking about our VA program. We're now helping to provide VAs that we've trained. Tell me, as far as how you are using kvCORE, you said it's been great for you. Can kind of just give your top 3 things you're doing in kvCORE to help nurture these leads or work with these types of leads?
Okay, I have some videos, testimonials, which are very impactful. And so I put them into a campaign, smart campaign. And I've been able to track at least 2 deals I've gotten from those. And in my area, the average property is worth about 580, 600,000. So just one deal, makes it worth it. However, my goal is to simply be able to be the recognizable name in my area for probate. There are certain attorneys that specialize in probate, and I want to be the realtor that most people recognize as a probate realtor.
When you're working with kvCORE, you've got testimonials that you're sharing in drip campaigns. And when you get a new lead, you're adding them to kvCORE to start nurturing. And then you kind of have a plan for your follow-up and making the calls on a regular basis. Besides a drip campaign, and making the calls, what other things are you doing in kvCORE to help? Are you sending any kind of like newsletters about the topic? Are you anything like that?
I just kind of started, but that's why I'm with the campaign now, so I can really do that. Do that. As somebody asked about a script too, yeah, scripts are in the manual I sent you, but it's very straightforward. I don't even use a script anymore, to be honest with you. Just so long, I'll say, this is Nate Arnold. I'm calling about the case you're working with. I'd like to assist you with that. What are your plans for the property? Bam, that's it. I get to
Right.
the point. It's not a long-winded discussion. I'm there to help you. I do the same thing with attorneys. This is Nate Arnold. I understand that you do quite a bit of probate cases. We have a full service company that deals with everything you need, from the seller properties to the clean out. Bam. You have any cases you're working with right now? I mean, it's very straightforward. I'm a professional. They are professionals. They want to make money. I'm here to help them do that.
Nice. So as far as other things you could do in kvCORE, let's say, my parent passed away and I'm not ready to sell yet. We've had a conversation and I'm getting your drip campaign of just some tips about working with my probate issues. And you're telling me about different ways you can help solve my problems. And I'm seeing these testimonials. But do you also at all put the home like do they get a listing valuation once a month, or do you send them out search alerts for new listings in that area related to that house? Is that something that you thought about doing, or do you think it would matter or help at all?
Well, I probably could do some of that. The listing valuation, though, is not something that I do on a regular basis, because in a lot of probate cases, they already have a fixed number that they're working with. In some cases, especially if it's unsupervised, they have to get an appraisal typically, a full-fledged appraisal. So they are going by the date of death. The appraiser is going to do an appraisal based on the date of death. And so if the appraiser is going to say 570, that's what it's going to be. Okay. We got to sell this property for at least 570.
Gotcha. Okay.
If we sell it for anything less, we got to explain to court, and you don't want to go through all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So each case is different. Approach is going to be different. Now, also, let me also encourage you, give you guys some encouragement with this. A lot of cases go through attorneys. All right. And a good percentage of my business is from attorneys. Now, attorneys use my services because, one, I'm going to close the deal. If I get it, I'm going to close it. All right. There's been maybe 1, 2 cases, I'm being honest, transparent, where I didn't. They couldn't sell it. Too emotional for them. So the first thing is they know I'm going to sell it. 2, they know I'm going to make the process easier for them. In other words, that they don't have to do a lot of the legwork. Like the property may need cleaning out. They got to get on the phone or I get on the phone too. If I do it for them, I'm still getting the same fee.
Sherry asked a good question. If the appraiser says you got to sell this for 570, she said, how much do you, well, then if that's the case, how much would you list it for? And my thinking is I think it depends on like the listing strategy that works best in your market. But, let's say 570 is like right at market value and it might be hard to get more. Would you list it for a little less to see if you can get some competition on that? Or what would your strategy be?
Well, remember what's going on now. There are 2 types of probate, supervised and unsupervised. Okay. The appraisal came back 570. But now as an appraiser uses what we call historical value. They do not use the current market value. So historical values, that simply means that they have settled sale that happened, say, before the date of death. If the market has changed and you can show that the market has changed, then you just present your CMA, so you solve the problem. The appraiser is only good. Understand, as an appraiser, is good for the date it is appraised. Understand that. Okay. Tomorrow, a thunderstorm, more than lightning can hit it, and so you just need to be aware of that.
Scotty said courthouse is time consuming. Is it worth teaming up with a title company to have them pull title and tell you what they found on the title?
No, too expensive. What you want to do is take the time yourself, go on the internet or hire a VA and help you do that, and then begin to make some calls yourself. That's what I would suggest you do. You need to become comfortable with the process. You need to know the process, okay? And once you'll know if this is something you want to do, if it's something that you can do, and if it's something that makes sense for you.
Leslie, go ahead.
So yeah, the wall that I hit, it seems like every time is the attorneys, right? So if there's a personal representative who doesn't have an attorney yet, and you make that connection with them, when they do get to that point where they get the attorney, it seems like in my area, a lot of the attorneys already work with agents and they are dead set on working with that agent because they have that relationship with them and they're very unwilling to give agents that they haven't worked with a chance. And even if a personal representative comes to them saying, I have an agent, there's been cases where the attorney's like, well, you will use this one. And they're so intimidating, I guess, that the person's like, okay, and yeah, I mean, I've tried to make inroads with attorneys, and I think somebody else is asking, how do you reach out to them? It's tough.
So what do you have to say about that, Nathaniel?
No. That's a very valid point. I will agree with you 100%. What my strategy is simply this. In our area, we have what's called DC has what's called a fiduciary panel. Okay. There are properties in DC that have been vacant, that have situations with them. And so the court actually appoints an attorney. These are the most difficult cases to work. You also have cases where people have been set up as conservators. Okay, somebody who's been deemed incompetent or not able to do certain things. And so they have to have an attorney appointed for them to manage their assets. Okay, so I have that list. That list is published in my area. So what I do is I go and I talk to them. I say, I know that you're on the fiduciary list. I know that you have very difficult cases. I wanted to introduce myself and my services. I work with quite a few of your associates and have helped them in certain cases. I think, and I know I can help you as well. And so I will invite them to lunch. I have a lunch budget. There are going to be some cases that the people, you're right, they're going to use who they want to use. A lot of attorneys also what I call double dipping. They do the sale, or they facilitate the sale, and they do work with the PR. a lot of times PRs are made wise about them too. They don't want to do that. Okay. So it's going to be a matter, it's a numbers game, a hit and miss game. But the thing is, you want to go after both. You want to go after attorneys because you will find attorneys that will use you. I've got some tremendous cases where I've got stories where I've been able to help attorneys. And once I did that, they just used me. I had one case where I got about 11 deals in 1 year from one attorney.
I don't have any like probate experience. I've been really interested in this for a long time, but I guess maybe what I'm hearing you say is maybe first try and get a personal representative or connect with that person and build that relationship. And so when they do get to that point where they have an attorney, they say, no, this is who I want to use, period. Maybe that will help. And then I can start, building some experience there because I feel like if I approach attorneys right now, all I have to say, all I'm able to say is like, hi, I'll work really hard for you and I'm really good at my job. And that doesn't seem to be enough,
Well, one thing I heard Nate you say at the beginning is, you really come in with a potential client and establish yourself as an expert who can help them. And you kind of like, hey, you probably have been approached or whatever, or maybe your attorney said this, or maybe an investor said this, but here's what's actually happening and how I can help. Would you say that type of attitude approaching could help Leslie?
Right. Well, what I would think also, Leslie, a good avenue is to give them something for free. Okay. Remember that, for example, they are not able to value the property in a lot of cases.
Are we talking about the personal representative or the attorney?
The attorney.
Okay.
Okay, the attorney. Give them a free CMA.
Okay.
Okay. Tell them you went by the property and you looked at it and you noticed that the grass was overgrown. Okay. I have a vendor that can do that for you. I used to go back, I used to drive past the property. In our area, we have what we call squatters. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If the property is vacant, typically sometimes squatters can come. So I tell the attorney, look, this property is in a great location, but that's also a neighborhood where people have tended to be squatters.
Mm-hmm.
So you may want me to change the lots for them. You offer services that they need. Okay. Put the hole in the door, so to speak. And you find something that they need and you give that to them. Okay. And you're not asking for any money, but they feel obligated to you. Once you do that, I had a case where, this case, they didn't know how to value it. So I just gave them a free CMA. And they said, okay, that's in line with what we had, what we thought. And I got the deal. They became one of my best clients.
Yeah, that helps. That helps.
Love that. Yeah, that helps so much because that's how, many of you guys, and I am like, you come from contribution anyway, right? So it's natural in this case that you need to really get in with the attorneys. These attorneys is another niche that you could put into kvCORE as status is sphere and their lead type is vendor. And then you're going to tag them probate attorney with a hashtag. And then you can kind of, think about how you can market to them, nurture them as far as how you can help the attorneys. Like, here's some services I can help you with. I can provide a CMA for you, et cetera. I can do this. I can do this. And, that might be a way in. So thank you, Nate. That was really good. Pam, how do you actually get these leads? And Pam, I don't know if you were here, but, it's going to probably be a little different in every area. And I'm going to put Nate's ebook in there. But if you just had to sum it up in a couple sentences, Nate, what do you do to get the leads? Is it just all court research?
No, there are so many ways to get leads in probate. I mean, sources of leads, but yeah, the main lead though is going to be your the list that you get from your jurisdiction. That's going to be the number one source because that's going to have your PR's information as well as if they have an attorney. You can also go to Google. With Leslie, you can go to Google and Google attorneys in your area. And then in our area, we have a DC Bar Association. Bar Association tells you specialties of different people. So you can go to your bar association and they can tell you who specializes in probate. You can then take them to lunch, talk to them, whatever. Um, and I think the attitude I've had is I'm going to make it work.
Right. This is like where you just really get into your niche. You see the return on it and you just decide, okay, this is working. I'm going to not just double down on this. I'm going to 10x this and make it mine and establish myself as an expert in this area.
One more question. This is a great question. Sonia, do you work with funeral homes to get leads? That is an excellent, 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 excellent question. Let me just say this. That is a market that I am now exploring. Not just exploring, I know it works. And this is how I know it works because I've talked with some funeral directors. In our area, there are many cases where, and I'll share this with you guys, there are many cases where a funeral, a home, a person dies and they can't bury the person because their insurance is not kicked in yet, okay? And so a funeral home does not take credit, by the way, in other words. So I've developed a program where I'm going to approach the funeral home and tell them, we will pay for the funeral for the person up front, okay? Now, as long as that person or the family has a property that they need to sell, all right? In our area, that's called when a person goes to bury a person, that lien takes superiority over other debt, over any of the other debts in the state, okay? It's called administrative debt. You guys might want to write that down, see if your area has it. And so, yes, you can go to a funeral home but you're gonna need an investor to put up the money for it.
I'm going to just share Nate's ebook and website here. It would just have to be something that you try. It's kind of like when you did your very, very first deal ever in real estate. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And you just like asked a lot of questions to everybody until you figure it out. I think it's kind of like that. All right. Nate, thank you so much, Nate. We really appreciate
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.